This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning. You're listening to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Mac and Jack Sports Show, our Friday edition. I'm your host, Mac, with your co-host, Jack Hirsch, legendary boxing writer in the Hall of Fame, and also serves as our historian here on our show because, he's been around for a long time, has watched sports all his life. So I love to have him on here so I can bounce things off of him and we can make some kind of conversation that you people would enjoy out there. Today on the show, we have the NFL analyst Byron Williams, TGI Sports Talk host Keith Engle, and of course the Philly sports guy who drive these. They join us. Keith and Pags, the Philly sports guy, joins us every Sunday, and we have Jim Jeffcoat on This Week in Sports as our co-host. So, Jack, how you doing this morning?
Good, Mac.
Good. We're gonna get to the NBA playoffs here first, Jack. Last night, Denver takes a 2-0 lead. They win 108-103. Jamal Murray leads the Nuggets with 37 points. Jokic has another triple-double, 23 points, 17 rebounds, 12 assists. And, I think who has Austin Reeves has 22 points for the Lakers. Jokic is the one taking the ball up the court, Jack. He sees the court well. He passes the ball well besides shooting. And Anthony Davis didn't look on his game. And him or LeBron didn't look on their game at all last night.
No, I wouldn't go that far, Mac. I thought they were solid. I mean, people expect Superman efforts from Anthony Davis and LeBron James for the Lakers to win. Jamal Murray, let's notice his contribution yesterday for Denver when they came on in the second half to overtake the Lakers. Jamal Murray really was the key player. But with Jokic, winning the NBA championship this year would be huge for him, even though he was a two-time MVP, winning it 2 years in a row and was in contention to win it again this year. To be accepted as one of the truly elite players, in his era, if not of all time, he needs that championship at some point. And the Denver teams he's been on have fallen short in the past. They haven't quite gotten to the NBA Finals after having good regular seasons. So maybe this is finally his breakthrough year. When we talk about who's the best player in the NBA, maybe Jokic's name comes up more in discussion than it has in the past. But he needs that NBA title. He needs to nail it down. Lakers can't be counted out even though they're down 2-0. But it's got to be a little discouraging for the Lakers, Matt, because they showed up these last two games. The level of intensity has been there, and they seem to have a handle on the game yesterday, but kind of let it get away in the second half. So you kind of wonder what their mindset is going into Game 3. But knowing the type of team they are with LeBron James and Anthony Davis, who have won a championship before as a duo, they're going to be ready for Game 3.
Well, they said that about Game 2, Jack. They talked all about the Lakers, the adjustments they would make for the Denver Nuggets this last game. And it seems like they ran out of gas, especially in the fourth quarter. Anthony Davis wasn't getting down the court. LeBron missed like 1 out of 13 3-point shots, settling for the 3-point shot at the end of the game, not driving to the hoop. And the Nuggets were out and running. They just ran the floor. And I think it's because of, some people are saying it's because of the altitude in Denver. All I hear is excuses. You got to give the Denver Nuggets credit, Jack. They're playing
You do have to give them a lot of credit, but the altitude is an advantage for the Denver Nuggets. They play in Denver all year. They've adapted to it. A team like the LA Lakers, not quite as much. Part of the reason with the Lakers too losing, they need some of their complementary players to step up. Some of the other starters. D'Angelo Russell, he didn't have much of a game yesterday, and they need a big game from D'Angelo Russell at some point when LeBron and Anthony Davis are just so. And D'Angelo Russell didn't supply that for the Lakers yesterday.
No, not at all. In fact, I think he started on the bench, if I'm not mistaken. They put in Shakuro, I think is his name.
Exactly. Well, D'Angelo Russell was supposed to be an exceptional player when he came to the NBA. And at times he's been such, but there's been inconsistency. He'll look great one game and then take 2 games off. And I'm not talking about his effort. Maybe he was a little overrated coming out of college and hasn't quite panned out into the star player, going from the Lakers to the Nets to the Timberwolves, back to the Lakers and all. But clearly with the Lakers to come back in this series, though, they're going to have to get contributions from other players besides Anthony Davis and LeBron James. Anthony Davis and LeBron James will be fine going forward. They'll play big games. But I do have to wonder, Mac, if the Lakers go down 3-0, what's going to be their level of intensity? I'm not saying they're going to quit, but you get the feeling they're not going to believe they could come back anymore if they get in that type of hole. They're down 3-0, because they're going to have it in their mind, we're down 3-0, and we also have to win twice in Denver. I mean, that's too big a mountain to climb.
Well, you mentioned the Lakers did win a championship, and I think they did play that bubble room championship against Miami. And
Correct.
they won that, and Miami is up 1-0. Jimmy Butler has his great game again. The center plays really well. Tatum did his thing, but it seems like no one's been able to take Jimmy Butler out of his game. And I know the Knicks tried, and the Celtics tried last game, but for some reason, this guy just hustles constantly, hurt, not hurt, rebounds, block shots. This guy does everything for Miami, Jack.
He's always around the ball, Jimmy Butler. Always around the ball. He grabs his own rebound, passes to someone else, and then gets open for a shot.
Yeah.
Plays tenacious defense, okay? Even when he forces turnovers just by his presence. And we were talking about this last week, Mac. Who's the most underrated NBA superstar? And it would have to be Jimmy Butler. When we talk about the great players in the NBA, Jimmy Butler's name doesn't come up. We'll talk about a guy like a Kawhi Leonard when he's healthy,
Right?
okay, as being one of the top players. We might talk about a Damian Lillard, okay, who had a great year, by the way, even though Portland didn't make the playoffs. And we talk about the big man, Embiid, Harden, Giannis, Anthony Davis. We talk about LeBron. But we don't talk about Jimmy Butler as being one of the truly great players in the NBA. I think a little might have to do with the attitude he's displayed in the past, trying to force his way out of Minnesota, then Philadelphia moving on from him. He was with Chicago beforehand. So when you're with your fourth team, they kind of wonder, we even talk about Kyrie Irving when he's settled and his head is all together. Kevin Durant. As the great players in the NBA, Devin Booker. Why not Jimmy Butler? Give me Jimmy Butler.
Yeah, I agree. Thing I like about Jokic is not just, how he plays, it's the type of individual he is, Jack, right? When he went up against Anthony Davis and he made that shot over his head with the buzzer beater, Anthony Davis just smiling. What can you do? But he talks about how good Anthony Davis really is, what a great player he is. Always humble. He's all business. He's not out there talking trash. He just plays the game and plays the game. Really.
Jokic or Anthony Davis?
No, Jokic.
Oh, you said Anthony Davis. Yeah.
Very humble. And he gives the people he goes up against, he gives them credit, the teams. He's not taking the Lakers for granted. He's just a good basketball player that keeps his head in the game. And if I was a coach, I'd love to have this guy on my team.
Oh, well, he's a great player, and he's versatile, he's strong. He gives you a lot of everything. He's very, very good in every single department. I mean, it reminds me of what they once said about this great boxer, Emil Griffith. His trainer, manager, Gil Clancy, said he does nothing great. He just does everything very well.
Yeah.
And that very few players are like that. Jokic has this physical strength to go head to head with anyone else. He has a finesse to, go on the outside, put on moves and adapt as well as anyone else. And every part of his game is very, very, very good. I mean, you have certain players who excel in certain areas, but they could be a little weak in other areas. They might not go to their left as good as their right. There's a certain imbalance, even with great, great players. But with Jokic, everything is just about as good as could be. And on top of that, too, he's as intimidating a presence as any other player in the NBA. Extremely intimidating. You drive to the basket, you get this physical presence over there who's going to make contact with you, and you're apprehensive to drive to the basket with Jokic. And if you want to dribble and take him down low, you're going against a brick wall. And conversely, when Jokic has the ball, he can back you up and take you down low and score, or he could, finesse you under the basket. Or he could just go for a three-pointer himself.
Yeah.
I mean, what a well-balanced game Jokic has. This has to be his year with Denver, winning the championship to get the recognition he deserves. But I'll tell you this Denver Nugget team, they've never even been to the finals in the NBA. I mean, we're not talking the ABA here, the NBA. So just finally breaking through, if they finish the Lakers off and get to the finals, is a big thing. But when they look at their opponent in the East, whether it's the Miami Heat or Boston Celtics, those are beatable teams. It's not like the East is producing a powerhouse team to play Denver this year.
Very true. Very true.
If it is Denver, let's not count out the Lakers quite yet.
I agree. And I think, when we were talking about Miami and the Celtics built up a big lead in the first half. Some people thought they came out and they thought they had the game won. Possible? I don't know. I know if I'm playing a Miami Heat with Jimmy Butler, I'm never counting that team out. So if they did, that was a huge mistake, Jack.
It is a great coaching up for Miami Heat by Eric Spoelstra. I mean, I don't understand how Miami's doing this, Mac. I was in Florida watching a lot of Heat games this year. They just didn't look that good. They lost their first play-in game.
Yeah.
But fortunately, they were able to come back the second night because of their seeding in the for the play-in, and they won that game so they could advance to the 8th seed in the playoffs. But they just barely got in the playoffs altogether, and they just didn't look like they had it this year at all. And now they've went on this run. I mean, they beat a Knicks team that beat the Cavaliers in 5 games that looked like they had a lot of chemistry.
Yeah.
And now to get off to this start against the Celtics, but it is only one game. I hate to use the term, Mac, only one game, because I don't feel you can afford to lose any playoff games, even though it's best 4 out of 7. I don't want to hear there's plenty of time. And I don't want to hear this nonsense, they've regained home court advantage. Home court advantage is plain out stupid to keep talking about that way all the time. I'll give you an example. Best 4 out of 7. If the Nuggets would have been told going into this series against the Lakers, we're giving you the first 2 games, the Lakers said, you're up 2-0, but the next 5 have to be in LA. Will you accept that? The Nuggets would have said, sure, we'll accept the next 5 games in LA. We only have to go 2-3 and we win the series. So don't give me this ridiculous nonsense with home court advantage, because I could point out all the times these teams with this home court advantage lost, and it wasn't like a big deal to them. It's winning the game. That's what counts, not regaining home court advantage. You're winning a game in the best 4 out of 7. That's the valuable thing you're going for.
Well, on our show a lot, we've talked about the seedings, Jack. And right now you have 2 of the lowest seeding teams in both conferences in the finals and both divisions, or both conferences, I should say. So do you still think that maybe the seedings have taken away from the game, or does it add to the game?
Well, look, 10 teams in reality in the playoffs, but the Lakers are a different team. They started the year 2 wins, 10 losses. It looked like the Lakers would go nowhere, but before the trade deadline, they made some adjustments, okay, to put them in a better position. I didn't think they were going to beat the Golden State Warriors. Maybe they caught Golden State at a good time. I don't know. But with 10 teams getting in, let's face it, Mac, when it comes to basketball, you can, in load management and all that talk, getting players ready, it's all about the playoffs. You spend the regular season getting your team ready for the playoffs as long as you know that they're going to get in, at least be a play-in team. You're resting guys up. And that's in reality what it's all about. I mean, sometimes you catch more of a break if you're seated a little bit lower because your matchup might be better. Like the Miami Heat right now, they were the number 8 seed. Okay, but then again, the NBA doesn't reseed. So take a team like the Philadelphia 76ers. They might feel that they were hard done because they had to play the Celtics, and they would have been better off playing the Knicks. Had they reseeded again the way they should have, the Sixers would have played the Knicks. So conceivably, the Sixers would have been playing in this round against the Miami Heat, Boston Celtic winner. Right. And let's say the Heat won that series as they're playing now, and we'll find out. The Sixers conceivably could have then been playing the Miami Heat in the finals. So by not reseeding, I'm sure Pax will have something to say about it later. You know, the Sixers came off really getting the short end of the deal because of the NBA not doing it the right way by reseeding the way they should have.
Yes, yes. The France star Wembanyama, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, likely to go to San Antonio Spurs as their first draft pick, going over there with Popovich. I can't think of a better coach to go. You know, he's a high school young kid. He hasn't played pro yet, so we'll see how well he does. One of those going to be the next greatest basketball player in the history of the NBA, from what I hear. But I think going play with Popovich is going to help him a lot in his first year.
Wembanyama, yeah, he's definitely going number one. Not since Patrick Ewing got picked number 1 overall by the New York Knicks ages ago, obviously in the mid-'80s, has a draftee, an NBA draft player, been so anticipated. Everyone knows he's going to be Wembanyama, the number 1 pick in the NBA draft. 7'4", can do everything. He dribbles like a point guard. He passes like a point guard. He's speedy on the court like a small guy. He rebounds like a big guy. I mean, the game is so perfect and in place, but he's still a kid. Right. He's got to physically mature and grow. He's not going to go to the NBA next year and dominate because in reality, he's still a bit of a boy going against men. So he's got to grow, get a little more physically mature. So let's not get a little ahead of ourselves and feel he's just going to go into the league and tear it up. But, you know, he should be a great, great player. And this is a tremendous compliment. At the very least, you're expecting another Tim Duncan. No worse than a Tim Duncan. And that's a great, great player. I mean, I wonder if San Antonio was told right now, okay, guys, you can have Tim Duncan all over again. Not better than Tim Duncan. There are a few players a little better than Tim Duncan historically. Would you accept Tim Duncan again? Of course. Okay? And he's going to be a great, great player for San Antonio. And you're right, going to San Antonio and having Coach Pop over there, that would be the perfect coach for him. Yeah, because you have to think of all the great players that have played for the Spurs, and they had good relationships with Coach Pop, with the possible exception of Kawhi Leonard, right, who could be a little erratic, you know, no matter where he is. I'm not saying Leonard's a bad guy by any means, but but Coach Pop knows how to mentor these young guys, and San Antonio Spurs are back on the map again. I mean, they could build around this kid, and good for San Antonio to get him with the number one pick. He's not a dysfunctional unit.
I was just reading on the and on the news today that if the Wizards, by not getting this young kid from France, might have lost $500 million. In other words, if they got them, that might have been another $500 million towards the worth of the Hornets. Pretty impressive. So
towards the Hornets went second. They're the ones who barely missed.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, that team value, they were saying probably when lost $500 million with the sales of jerseys and blah blah blah. So pretty interesting.
That's I never thought of that. That's an interesting point, because when you have a generational talent like that, you think to yourself, what is it worth to the franchise? Wins, losses, making them a championship contender. Yeah, that raises the value, but you sometimes don't think of what it means marketing-wise, even before he's even dribbled a basketball for the team. It does create a certain buzz. Like I said before, when they had the ping pong balls and Patrick Ewing became a New York Knick, I remember the announcer saying, big-time basketball is back again at Madison Square Garden. All of a sudden, Madison Square Garden was the in-place to be. It's exciting. You want to get a ticket. You want to go there. There's a buzz. You want to watch the Knicks play when Ewing was there all of a sudden. It changed everything. And now for San Antonio, who had a terrible season last year, they didn't seem to be much hope. All of a sudden, they're back. You could start thinking of the glory days when they won 5 championships under Coach Pop. You know, you're thinking Ginobili, Parker, Duncan, Robinson. You're thinking of the glory days again, and they might come back, and it might become a free agent destination again. All of a sudden, a free agent who wants to win takes a look at San Antonio and says, there's some real hope over there. I wouldn't mind going to San Antonio and playing with this kid.
I'll tell you, I'd love to be his agents. I can only imagine endorsement deals this guy's going to get even before he starts playing. It's going to be crazy.
And he seemed like a good kid. You saw the pictures of him watching the draft, smiling, going there. I mean, there are other teams that could have gotten him, had the ping pong balls bounced a certain way. You take the Detroit Pistons, who've been very dysfunctional, and you take the Charlotte Bobcats, and, Charles Barkley was right. Michael Jordan has done a miserable job as an owner. He's one of the worst owners in NBA history as far as, where the Hornets have been under his direction.
Very true. Good morning, Byron. How you doing?
Hey, Byron.
We're talking about that young kid coming from France, probably going to San Antonio Spurs, and what a lift that's going to be for that team. So that's going to be.
And what do you mean, probably? Can you imagine San Antonio's not going to draft someone else to trade his rights?
You never know.
Come on, Mac.
Like, you never know.
Let's say they were crazy.
Listen, all right, suppose you get Giannis and a couple others for him. Would you trade?
What couple of others? I wouldn't. Would I trade Giannis for him? If Giannis signed a contract for the rest of his career to play with San Antonio, you can't help but think about it. I wouldn't dismiss it. Yes. But if the Knicks hypothetically called San Antonio up and said, you could have our number 1 draft choice for the next 10 years, I don't think San Antonio takes that deal even.
All right. So there you go. Jack, and me and Jack are just wheeling a deal in here, Byron.
That's like the Giants calling up the Bengals. Can you imagine they tell the Bengals, you can have our number 1 draft choice for the next 10 years for Joe Burrow. I mean, Cincinnati might do the deal, but chances are they wouldn't. Think of it, right? You got Joe Burrow. No one gives up Joe Burrow. That's insane.
Byron, we got Daniel Jones. We don't need no Joe Burrow.
Yeah, we are.
I'm giving an example. Any other?
That's too many draft picks. We all right.
Yeah. We'll be fine. Okay, get to the Giants. Giants have signed every first rounder for last one being Deontay Banks. The only pick left is the center, John Schmidt. He's the only one left. So the Giants are getting busy signing all the draft picks. I imagine Schmidt will be taken care of pretty shortly. So the big news, I think, still is Saquon Barkley. The Giants pulled the offer, and there's a dispute, with the Giants front office and Barkley's agent. When it goes public, when these negotiations go public, the Yankees tried it. There's other teams that have tried it. It normally doesn't go too well, Byron. You got to get behind the doors again. He's going to play for the Giants this year, but get behind the doors again during the season or whatever and work something out, right?
Right. Yeah. Now, hopefully they can come up with something between now and the start of the season. Hopefully, and they can make a promise to him, during the season. So they're still negotiating behind the scenes, and I think it's very important that he just stay focused on what he needs to do, and that's on the football field.
Yeah, Byron, there's certain things that you can't comment on because of your position, and you shouldn't comment on them in this show, and we don't want you to, because it's not your place because of the position you hold. But when it comes to players like Saquon Barkley, and I like Saquon Barkley, seems to be a good person, great attitude, everything about him. He fits the image of the type of player you want associated with your team. But the point is, he's got a contract. All these guys who have a contract, the team is under no obligation to do a darn thing. They can franchise tag him and just play. And if the player doesn't perform, his value is going to go down for next year. So he's got to perform. They don't have to make him happy if he's got a contract. You see the same thing with coaches. They got 1 year left on their deal, and the media says, they don't have confidence in him because they're not extending him. He's got a year left on his deal. Let him play it out, and then he becomes a free agent. We got laws here. That's where the player gets leverage. Let him play out his darn contract, become an unrestricted free agent, and then he could do what the heck he wants. The Giants are under no obligation to do anything with Saquon Barkley. Their obligations do what's right with their team. Let's say the player gets hurt in the interim. Teams gotta, look out for their long-term well-being here. And Saquon Barkley can take the Giants off of a 3-year deal, what they offered him, or take the risk of being a free agent. That's what being a free agent is, guys. It's taking a risk. Is he willing to take the risk? But you're one injury away from your career ending. You always have to keep that in mind. But let's say you don't get injured and he has an Eric Dickerson type year next year. What's he going to do? Start grumbling? Well, I felt pressured to sign the contract. My agent gave me bad advice. Everything is a gamble here.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely a gamble. It's all about timing. It's all about, making the right decision. And, I just think, too, it's two sides to it. Is what's best for you and your family, and trying to make the most money as you can while you're able to make that money. And like I said, you want to play away. So I just think if he just stay focused on staying healthy, working out hard in the off season, and he's a good disciplined player already. So, and you see a lot of things that go wrong when players try to do things their way. Like we talked about guys sitting out and stuff like that. All they do is hurt their chances of playing. I think you got to be active. You got to stay engaged. I was him. I would go to the OTAs. I'll show up in the locker room from time to time and show myself as a leader on and off the football field. And I think, he gonna get compensated for all of that. And I think that's what you do. And, you got to continue to be a professional while you're playing this game of football. And because, you like to say, you one play away. And I see so many players after they go from being franchise tag to trying to get that contract, a lot of bad things do happen.
No doubt. There's so many before the seasons. There's so many different views on what's going to happen. Yeah. You go to Giants site, of course, they're saying they might go 11-5, which is ridiculous. Then you go to other places.
Ridiculous, Mac. I mean,
11. Yeah, come on, Jack. Chances are that's not happening. I don't think so. I would love it. I think of the Giants moving in the right direction. That's the key. Like Pax feels they're 1 year away. Yeah, I get the feeling I think the record is a little less important for the Giants this year.
as it is to really set yourself up for the future, meaning next year, where they could really be a force.
Oh, I agree. I agree with that. I'm just saying there's so many. I mean, if you listen to all the different things, they'll drive you crazy. Vegas has them going 6-9. That's their. I'll bake a bit on that in a minute. I know they ain't going.
They play 17 games, Mac.
Well, 6 wins, Jack.
Yeah.
So anyway, maybe 6-9 and
6
2.
and 11. 6 and 11.
Oh man,
It's crazy. But what's interesting is from what I've been reading is the Giants are going to put in the San Francisco 49er offense, where the tight end is going to be a big part of it. Spreading the ball around, because right now we don't know, if Hyatt's going to be that big player that we think he's going to be. So according to Mike Kafka, who was the 49ers quarterback coach today, he's our offensive coordinator, they're going to throw in the San Francisco 49er offense. They're changing the whole offense from last year, Byron, which will mean it's going to take a little time for them to, to get that cranking out.
I think that's what you do in the offseason. The OTAs is I think players can pick it up. I think now they got these playbooks on laptops and you play playbook, the map playbook. And I think they're gonna probably be focusing on between now and when the season starts to make sure these players understand the concept. I think when you go into these different offenses, it's not that hard to pick up. It's just that everybody needs to be on the same page. I think it's mostly the chemistry and the blocking scheme that they create, and then the route combination for the receivers. And I think if they pick that up, then I think it won't be a problem.
Yeah,
I'm not sure who the Giant backup tight end is. They're Darren Waller, who they got from the Raiders.
Right.
They're counting on him heavily. Okay, you talk about West Coast offense, but doesn't that have to be for the whole team? If you put so much emphasis on a player who's been predominantly injured the last couple of years, and he's not healthy this year, which, is a possibility, and he's out again, where does that leave you? You see that happen sometimes with backup quarterbacks. You want to get a backup who can adjust to that whole offense. That's not a different style of player. And are the Giants ready in that area with the West Coast offense? I mean, I've never been a believer in that, maybe because I still, after all these years, don't fully understand what a West Coast offense is. I've heard it. It's been explained to me. I still don't get it. Okay, because football is basic. You run, you block, you tackle, you get open at the end of the day.
But the West Coast offense is so open and it's a lot of fun to watch because you have so many options. The players have options on the football field. The quarterbacks have options. Running backs have options. And just think of Christian McCaffrey last year and Deebo Samuel. I mean, it really opened up a lot of space and give your receivers and your quarterback got to be on the same page. But it opened up opportunity to where you can make those big plays.
So you're telling me you cannot have the West Coast offense with a big, straight, powerful running back like Derrick Henry who goes straight ahead?
You can, because it's a single back. It's a single. Still, you got the single back. But what I'm saying is that the quarterback and the receivers and the running back have different options, in space. So if instead of going run your route outside, you have the option running inside, or you can run straight up the field. Which you think what they do is create mismatches. And I think that's what's exciting about watching the West Coast offense. That's why it's so hard to dictate what they do at the 49ers, because those players have those options. Now, Christopher McCaffrey came from the Panthers over to the 49ers, and he picked it up real well. So I'm thinking that it shouldn't be that hard for these players to pick it up.
Yeah, I agree with you. The question is, can Jones play the West Coast offense? Because if they're basing it off San Francisco, you're basing it off Patrick Mahomes. Now, DJ is no Patrick Mahomes, that's for sure. He does have great quality. He's very tough. He's tough like Sims and like Manning was, and he can run with the ball. So that's the difference between Sims and Manning and Jones to me. And believe me, I'm not comparing them to either of those two quarterbacks.
Yeah.
But I think that this will get the ball out of his hands faster. He won't be getting sacked as much. The line will have to hold less time. And I think, Byron, all this stuff is to beat the Philadelphia Eagles, right? Philadelphia
Right.
Eagles has a heck of a pass rush. They want to get the ball out fast. Dallas built their secondary to beat the Philadelphia Eagles. Everything that these teams are doing, I'm not sure about the Commanders, but everything the two other top teams are doing are to beat the Philadelphia Eagles.
Absolutely. And I think it's gonna be fun to watch. I think when teams play the 49ers, just think the last 2 or 3 years when teams play the 49ers, they are always hard to beat. I don't care how you look at it. They seem like they have it, and they change from one quarterback to the next quarterback. Next quarterback stepped up, and they still was hard to beat. So I think that's going to be exciting just to see if the Giants can come up with that concept of having that West Coast offense. And I think that's one of the things going to happen each and every game. They'll be in a game, and I think with the players that they added, and I think if Daniel Jones can pick up everything pretty good, I think it'll be good for the Giants, and so that might be why they might win 10 games.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting.
And last year, if you stop to think about when the Giants go on the road, I know they have a 7-game schedule with 10 games on the road in 10 weeks. I think if they can play as hard as they played last year, I think that 7-game schedule on the road would be good because at the end of the season, they'll have a lot of home games as well.
It's true. Very true. Should be very interesting to watch. The defense of the Giants, there's still a couple holes there. They've filled a couple on draft picks and signed in some free agents. They're supposedly the number 1 rated rush defense inside Terrier in the league right now this year. Of course, we got to get some more help on the outside there. They got to put some pressure on the quarterback. Our defensive linebackers still need some work. Our secondary is improving. So what do you think the Giants are going to do defensively this year? Mostly the same, right? They're very aggressive. They come hard. I don't think they're going to change that too much.
No, I don't think they're going to change that too much. I just think they're just going to just come up with some type of pass rush scheme to where they can get to the quarterback quicker, fill some of the holes, with the running backs and make sure we don't have running backs running over 100 yards a game. And I think, the linebacker play got to improve. They got to be able to run from sideline to sideline. But I think, too, the secondary is going to be much improved. We have some young experience on one side of the corner, but other than that, hopefully it'll pick up. I think one of the things you see across the board with these NFL players is a lot of defensive backs are coming into the league ready to play. So you see more of that this day and time versus, where they need 2 or 3 years. So that's going to be good because a lot of college emphasize getting these guys ready to go up to the next level and play immediately. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, I agree with that. Which game are you going to want to see? I'm thinking about going to see I might go to Meadowlands to see the Jets and the Giants this year. I want to see that game. So
Mac, if you check what tickets cost, you just say you're going to get up and go.
It's a treat, Jack. Everybody gets to get a treat once in a while, So
get that treat. Yeah, and that will be that's gonna be a good game because the fans gonna be on fire in that stadium. It's just I think it's week 8 that the Giants and the Jets play, and I think it's gonna be an exciting game to watch. That's gonna be everybody got the eyes on that game across.
Well, you're living in a different era. When I was a young man, tickets would be the same for every game. You get the schedule and you'd get a set price. Now they price you according to the team. So, for example, if you were going to see the Arizona Cardinals, no disrespect to Kyler Murray, he's not an attraction, or the Cardinals, that would be a heck of a lot cheaper than it would be to watch, let's say, the Dallas Cowboys or the Jets Giants, in a city rivalry like that. That's a more expensive game. Some games are more expensive than the others. Last year in Miami, I went to the Dolphin Packet game. That was the most expensive game on the Dolphin schedule. Okay, but it just so happened that's when I was available to go. But I had to pay for it, and I looked at the prices for the Houston Texans last year, and it was only like maybe 1/4 of what the Dolphin Packet game was, because no one cared about the Texans last year. So you could get in to see them much cheaper.
Yeah. But that's gonna be an exciting game. You're gonna have a lot of things happening on the outside the stadium. tailgating and things like that. So I mean, it's just people gonna be wearing their colors. You gonna know who the Giants fans are. You gonna know who the Jets fans are. So
it'll be a 50-50 split. I think it'll be half Giant fans, half Jet fans.
I don't think that's quite a legacy game the way it used to be, Jets and Giants. It's fun that afternoon. And then by the next week, people basically forgot who won. Bottom line is what the team did for the season. One team can beat the other, but they're not going to have any bragging rights if they've had a poor season in comparison to the other. It just isn't going to work that way in the long run. I mean, if one team makes the playoffs, but they've lost to the other team, I mean, who cares at the end? It really doesn't matter.
Well,
it matters to the fans. I think.
Not at the end.
Jack, listen. When we beat you guys, I will rub it in all year. I don't care. We'll make the points. I will rub it in all year to you.
Yeah, we're gonna rub it in. We're gonna rub it in from start to finish on you, Jack.
It matters what happens by the end of the season. I mean, that's all that really counts.
Of course.
I mean, even when we have Jim Jeffcoat on this show, no one really cares that the Buffalo Bills beat the Dallas Cowboys in Dallas in between their two Super Bowl losses. The Bills actually beat the Cowboys in Dallas, a regular season game. No one gives a darn at all.
But you asked the wrong guy, Jim Jeffcoat, because Jim played for the Cowboys and the Bills, so he really, he liked both teams.
Yeah.
Did he? What kind of player was he for the Bills, Byron? Did he really contribute? Did they bench him or what?
Yeah, he came up there and he was with Bruce Smith and those guys. So he played. He played. He made an impact.
Let me tell you, Jim liked to piggyback off these stars next to him so he could do some work. Look at the guys Buffalo had, like Bruce Smith, the guys who Dallas had pass rushing. Jim liked to cash in. He liked to pick up the crumbs off the table at the end.
Folks, do not listen to Jack Hurst.
Yeah, well, Jim is my buddy, so I can't say nothing bad about him. I'm gonna let you say something bad about him.
I would have liked to see Jim play for the Detroit Lions and see could he do some work there. That's what I would like to see. Jim had help around.
Not only a great insider like Byron here on Sundays, but 100 Sack Club, All-Pro, 2-time Super Bowl winner, nominated for the Hall of Fame. You're talking about Jim Jeffcoat. You're not talking.
If you put Jim next to Thibodeau, what would he do if he wasn't getting?
But just think about this, Jack. Ain't too many defensive linemen can catch the ball like Jim. He can catch that ball.
Yeah. Jim was okay if the ball would be tipped and it would land in his hands. He'd hold on.
I'd agree with that.
He wouldn't go out and get the ball, but if it would land on him, yeah, he would get it.
I'm gonna pull my pom-poms out when I talk to Jim. I said, Jim, man, we love you, man. But Jack told me you can't catch a ball. You can't really run that fast. It was just a feeling type guy.
It was the people you played with, all this stuff. Which is you gotta let.
Jack, you're hard, man. I tell you, you're hard. I think boxing, watching boxing, writing boxing, have really made you rusty, Jack. I'll tell you, you can't talk about Jim that way.
No, but that's all right. He'll help deny everything Sunday.
I like Jim. I like Jim, but you got to give the guys around him credit.
Well, maybe Jim Jeffcoat made them better, Jack.
Exactly. Because Jim got double teamed a lot.
Not when Too Tall Jones was next to him. They double teamed Too Tall.
Well, he was on the other side, Jack.
Yeah, he was on the opposite side.
Yeah, so that didn't matter.
And I'm still gonna get Too Tall on the phone with you, Jack.
Yeah, you've been saying that, Byron.
Too Tall flushed the quarterback out of the pocket to where Jim was standing.
Yeah, that's what happened. The NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell says Sunday Ticket will move to YouTube. And this is only the beginning of the tech, as these tech places pick up the NFL games.
Yeah.
They're going to pay $2 billion for 7-year rights. It's good chunk of change there. Byron, does the NFLPA get any of that money?
Yeah, they do. They do some profit sharing. So yes, they have to because of players part of the game, and so part of that money is divided up. They got like a formula that they have to split up part of the proceeds and money even the big contract they signed with Amazon a couple of years ago, it's the same way. So they have to split that money up in different royalty pockets, so everybody can get their share of money.
I mean, I have Prime Videos. When they had those Thursday games last year, I got to watch it on my iPad. I still haven't figured out how to hook it up on my TV, but it was a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
Okay. And most people have ESPN and they have cable, the vast majority. So I don't want to hear, well, let's put it on free TV. We're not living in an era anymore where people, unless they're extremely, extremely poor, and I feel for them if they are, they have channels 2, 4, and 7. And people, for the most part, they're not going to just listen to a game on the radio if they're at home. They'll listen to it on their car while they're driving on the radio. But how do you get Prime? So many people are missing it who don't have it.
Yeah.
And you know how that's helping the NFL because there are numbered games they want to see, and then you hear they can't get them. I mean, would the NFL just be better off just giving it to, the 3 networks, the 1 or 2? Because it's hard for me to believe that CBS, NBC, or ABC wouldn't, put on a Thursday night game. Is the other programming so much better? If you give them elite NFL games, would they do that? And Prime last year, Thursday night, they were given some of the worst games. Terrible.
Yeah.
The games were dreadful. Al Michaels moved over to Prime, legendary broadcaster. It was brutal. Not only were the teams bad, but the games would turn out to be terrible as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, you got these young people that's on these that's on their iPads and things, and they can use those services quicker because they understand it. And unfortunately, they trying to go global, and they trying to let the people across the pond and all that see these games as well. So there's a lot of things that they're trying to figure out. But these people now are getting outbidded. ABC, CBS is getting outbidded by these other companies, and so that's what's happening. So there's going to be a changing. I think hopefully they need to make it easier to where people understand how to be able to use their different devices, and they be able to watch TV. But sometimes the screens don't show as clear as the TV. That's the only negative thing. So they still got a lot of things that need to work out. But with these teams handing out all these monies, the NFL ain't gonna turn down no money. So whoever have the highest bid gonna get these awards.
A buddy of mine, boxing judge, the late Harold Letterman, he was the HBO unofficial boxing judge. He was a big football fan, a Jet season ticket holder.
Right.
He goes to all the Jet home games. I remember him telling me as far back as the 1990s, right after the 49ers beat the Bengals in the Super Bowl, him telling me the Super Bowl is not going to be on free TV for long. It's going to be a pay-per-view event. It hasn't happened. But can you guys ever see the day where the Super Bowl becomes a pay-per-view event, actually? You're charging people, let's say, $50, $75, or whatever to catch the game.
And I think if we get to that point, it'd be really greed. I think that'd be unfortunate because it's one of the biggest games now that people want to see. So I think it won't be fair to the fans. Yeah, hopefully we don't get to that point.
That'll never happen. With all the money the commercials are paying right now, they make tons of money.
They'll still get the money on commercials, Mac, on top of it.
I didn't know. Do you get commercials on pay-per-view, Jack? I don't think you do.
No.
But you can. What would stop them?
Because actually the commercial is you paying to watch the game. You can't do commercials. I think it's against the law. I'm almost positive. You can check it out. I'm almost positive.
That's a good question. I never thought of that element. Would it be illegal to show commercials? But there are sponsors you see, like in boxing on the apron.
Yeah. But I don't think you could do commercials like they do today. I mean, you're paying $1 million for 30 seconds. I mean, that's crazy. Why would you even want to go to pay-per-view? That's nuts.
Yeah, you shouldn't want that anyway.
Yeah. Byron, there's of course the NFL has been going overseas, like you're saying, England, Germany. They're down in Mexico. I don't know if they're going anywhere else or not. But do you think that there's going to be another World Football League coming soon?
I think they need to create something like a minor league. I just think because of the players and the people that love it, I think you're gonna see a span of where you're gonna see women playing football, and they getting ready. They getting ready to do it. They getting ready to host the Olympics flag football for women.
Yeah, flag football is different.
But I'm just saying, it's gonna be one of those things where people it's a game that people just love to play. So
yeah.
You'll see a lot of creative.
Byron, you played in a World Football League. It wasn't great, but it was somewhat successful, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it wasn't really losing a lot of money like the USFL did. So,
but one of the things that by me playing over there in the World League, the stands were full. When we went to London, there was a lot of people in the game. When we went to Frankfurt, Germany, it was a lot of people. In Barcelona, it was a lot of people. So yeah, it's the people over there are filling the stands because they so used to going to games like soccer, and that's one of the things that's what really happens. So they can go back and take that same model, and they can maybe try to create something. But I think you need to have it to where it might not be the NFL. It might be something like the XFL or the USFL.
Like it was
Byron, you're not going to have a woman playing football unless possibly it's a soccer player who has a strong leg, a woman who could kick field goals from over 50 yards, which is possible. But the woman would have to be very accurate, a really accurate kicker with enough of a leg. That's a possibility. But you're
I'm not saying, Jack, I'm not saying women playing with guys. I'm not saying women playing with guys. I'm talking about women playing with women. I ain't saying.
They do. They have that already, Byron.
But the WNBA is
They already have women football. I've watched a couple of videos of it. It's pretty good too.
Good. No. But look at the WNBA. Okay, you got talented women playing in the league. It's a good league. It just hasn't garnered a great deal of interest, and in part because it's hard. You have too many sports leagues going on, too much sports going on at once, and it's the same like football, the XFL, USFL. You get some decent players there, some decent games, but they can't compete with the NFL. There's only so much sports you can watch. Hockey's going on during that time. The NBA's going on, Major League Baseball. There's just so much room up here to take in all the sports. You just can't follow everything. Then you turn the channel, there's lacrosse. I'd like to learn more about lacrosse. I don't have the time to follow the league. And then you get college football, you get this, you get that. It's just too much.
My grandson is playing lacrosse right now. You're absolutely right. It's a lot of things out there, but sports is one of the space where people you learn so much participating in sports for its live skills, and so I think that's why it's so attractive to so many people. So.
And you want to expose the kids in the inner city. They're just playing basketball. Easiest game to play. You just need one basketball. And then you could have 50 kids, alternate and participate. But in some of these other sports, you need equipment. But, I once exposed some inner city kids in a group home who never played softball before. Got a bunch of gloves, the bat, the ball. They loved it. Something new. But I think it's got to start at the school, something like lacrosse. Who plays lacrosse in elementary school or something? It would be great, exposure. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Definitely. There's a lot of sports out there that are great for kids. Just a matter of putting it together. It's hard. It's when I coach at the lower level, it's very hard to put this all together. It takes a lot of work. It's what you did, Jack, was cool. But if you really want kids playing certain sports, it takes tons of hours, tons of volunteers. Byron knows just by setting up events. Imagine carrying this off for a year or multi years. You're gonna have people that really are committed to this to make this stuff happen. And man, I'll tell you, it was a second job to me when I ran the football league up here. It became a second job. I never stopped. So,
I'm experiencing that now. I'm going down to Tyler trying to set up my NFL flag football program. Tyler, Texas, they got about 110,000 people in that city, and they got 10 zip codes. And so when you put the zip code on, my website pull up, and then you have and people that want to play flag football. I got it from age 5 all the way to age 15. And it's a lot of work. You know, you got to put out signage, you got to get the website up, you got to get, you know, your back office, you got to do background checks on people that's refereeing and coaching. It's a lot of work because there's so much now in our society that you got to have in place to make it very, you know, attractive and fun for those kids. And so I've been down there talking to the coaches, I've been talking to the parents, and it does take up a lot of my time. So it's definitely, when you're setting up these different programs and leagues and things like that, it's a lot goes into it behind the scene.
Yeah. I mean, Jack, you would be surprised. You said how it's broke down, who's the leader of this and the leader of that during the league, and the chairman, the head guy, goes to meetings with them, comes down to us. We set up a schedule. We try to do the scrimmages. I mean, it's, you know, I mean, I respect anybody that gets out there and tries to help out. It can be overwhelming, and you know, it's worth it. It's worth it. I got great memories. I got great things that happen, but man, it's not easy. And Byron, how do you got any time? You're in the NFLPA. Well, you know.
And I just got back last night. Today is my wife's birthday, and I got to go up to Frisco here in a minute. But my point is, I just like to stay busy, first of all. And I think if I'm doing something with kids, you know, last night we went and gave a kid a scholarship at the school banquet. We gave him a $3,000 check. So it's just something constant. I like to stay busy. So it's one thing that you know, until I have my energy, as long as I got some energy, I'm gonna do something. You know, that's my DNA. But you know, I just think that you have to do it. You know, I just got back from setting up my football camp. This will be my 29th year to do my football camp / my golf tournament that we're gonna have in my hometown, which will be in June. And so you know, I just like to stay busy. So that's what I got. That's what I like.
I got you, Byron. Folks, we're getting to the top of the hour. We're going to take a promo break. Byron, I hear you got to go. We'll be back on the other side with Keith Engle, folks. So stick around and check out these cool promos from the rest of our shows.
He was a giant, and he was a cowboy. Now these two former rivals have joined forces to bring you the most insightful, perceptive, and controversial sports talk podcast in America. Former Dallas Cowboys defensive end Jim Jeffcoat locks horns with former New York Giants wide receiver Byron Williams. And now, here's Byron Williams and Jim Jeffcoat. If you like the sweet science, get ready to talk boxing on the Gloved Fist podcast with top boxing writers Frank Latirzo and Jack Hirsch. Frank, a former amateur boxer out of Philadelphia, writes for NY Fights and can be seen on the Boxing Channel. Jack, an amateur boxer who competed in the New York Golden Gloves, was a 6-term president of the Boxing Writers Association. And now, here's Frank Latirzo and Jack Hirsch. It just might be the greatest sports franchise in the history of sports. A place where legends are made, and there's always something to talk about. Get ready to immerse yourself in pinstripes. Start spreading the news, hosted by Paul Semendinger and E.J. Fagan, a couple of doctors with a prescription for Yankee fever. And now, here's Dr. Paul Semendinger and Dr. E.J. Fagan. Get ready to start spreading the news.
See right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready. I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, I'm from Brooklyn. Hey, guys, any...
This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. That picture there is in place of Jack right now. It's some kind of ladies picture. It looks like it's interesting. So anyway, folks, let me get to some MLB news. We haven't talked the MLB yet. In the games last night, or yesterday, I should say, California beat Baltimore 6-5. Here's Jack back. All right, there you go. So California beat Baltimore 6-5. Florida beat the Nationals 5-3. The Mets beat the Rays 3-2. The Yankees beat Toronto 4-2. And St. Louis put 16 on the Dodgers, jumping out fast, and the Dodgers couldn't get back into it. Jack, so the Angels back-to-back time and Trout. I think it's the first time this year they did that. So maybe we'll see some more of that as it goes on. Florida playing good ball. I think they're in second in the West. They beat the Nationals 5-3. The Mets get by the Rays 3-2. The Yankees with a 2-run shot by Judge and a solo shot by Volpe win 4-2. Cortez was a pitcher on that game. And like I said, the St. Louis Cardinals beat the Dodgers 16-8. So those were the games that were last night. And in the news, Suzuki, the young kid from Japan, becomes the first Japanese-born player to have 3 home run in 3 straight appearances, Jack. No other Japanese player has done that. And Herman gets suspended and fined for using a foreign substance, Jack. Do you know what that foreign substance was, Jack? Because I'm not sure what it was.
I don't know, but his hand was the stickiest of any player when an umpire said who he's ever felt.
Right.
And he was warned about this before. Okay, it was the second time. He got away with it one time, and now I mean, a 10-game suspension for starting pitcher isn't as bad as it sounds. He's missing 1 start.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't the most serious of discipline when you think about it. He's missing 1 start because he'd be starting 5 games later. For a relief pitcher, it would be a little different. You know,
Sure.
It might mean he's missing 3 appearances, conceivably 4 appearances, but he misses 1 start, and let's see if it happens again, what the penalty is going to be. But pitchers are taking liberties with this. They're seeing how much they can get away with. Yeah. I think it stings him more, maybe 10 games where he's not going to get paid. But you wonder certain players, is the team going to pick up the tab for him? Let's say the team tries to pay the player for the 10 games he missed. Domingo Germán doesn't have that type of clout, but maybe a Max Scherzer might. But the league is coming down, hard on it, as far as sticky substance goes. So, good for them at least.
Well, the Philly offense continues to struggle with a 4th straight loss. Garrett Cole and Zach Gallen are the lead for the Cy Young poll so far. Cole, of course, has had a real good year. I'm not sure Zach Gallen, Jack. I haven't followed Zach.
Yeah, it's too early, Mac, to project who's going to win the Cy Young Award, who's in the lead for that. That's complete nonsense at this point of the year. When May, I mean, come on, we still have a little bit of a while to get out of May, and then we have June, July, August, and September. We have so many things could happen. You look at the standings and little things come up, like a team like the St. Louis Cardinals, who always make the playoffs. They got off to a 10-23 start, and it made no sense. They seem to be too good for that. So you thought, they're off to a terrible year, but they've gone 9-3 in the last 12 games. And even though they're in last place in the National League Central, they're only 6 games out. You look at like certain trends that are happening, and there are very few teams that are really a disaster. I mean, the Oakland Athletics are one of them. I mean, they're really terrible. They don't seem to have really elite prospects. So it doesn't seem like things are going to get better too soon. And they built new land in Las Vegas for Oakland to move there, obviously. And let's say the Oakland Athletics do move to Las Vegas. What happens if they have this awful product that they have now, these awful teams? I mean, are people going to turn out in Las Vegas? There's so much to do. You kind of wonder. I mean, I know the stands are empty in Oakland, but are they going to be any more full in Las Vegas? And also you wonder how teams survive. we hear, well, when attendance is down, we have to move because revenues are down. What about during the pandemic? No one had anyone in the stands for that. And Major League Baseball seemed to be just fine.
Yeah, I guess so. Keith, how you doing? Keith from TGI
Hey, Keith.
Sports.
Morning, gentlemen.
Every Thursday, and we talk about, of course, the
It better not be Thursday. If it's Thursday, I'm jumping out a window.
Is it Thursday?
I love hearing Keith talk about the Yankees and the Knicks. I don't like hearing him talk about too much about the Patriots, not because of Keith. What he says is logical. It makes sense. It's informative. But the Patriots have no charisma anymore. They just don't. There's no charisma. They've become dull. They've actually become a dull team.
Yeah. I won't disagree with that at all. That part I will agree with. And I said for 20 years, which, someday we'll be like everybody else, and now we're like everybody else.
Worse, even. They are dull. They don't have wideouts, running backs. They don't have that little extra push. Even their quarterback, who I like, Max Jones, he's a dull quarterback. I mean, when you think of it.
If it gets me 11 wins this year, I'll take dull all day long. But you're right. You're absolutely right. They are not. There's no juice there anymore for sure.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get to the Patriots in a little bit. I want to get your thought on Ja Morant a little bit. He's in trouble. Charles Barkley kind of went at him. JJ Redick is kind of making excuses for him. But the kid, I don't know what else you can do to make this kid understand that he's not doing the right thing. Maybe there's no mentors on that team. Maybe the coach doesn't know how to handle him. I don't know. Keith, what are your thoughts?
Well, the problem is not just Ja Morant. I mean, it's an epidemic in sports, especially the NBA and the NFL to almost the same extent. There's too much of this. These kids have too much too fast. There's no real mentorship in the leagues. They need to set this up. And if they're not going to do that, and these kids don't learn when you just slap them on the wrist and say, all right, you're suspended for 10 games, you're this, you're that. Until these leagues get tough and start really having a no tolerance policy, or you're suspended for a year, and the second time you're suspended for good, because bad stuff is going to start happening, more often than it happens now. You don't go waving guns around. Do you think for a second that gun's not loaded? I mean, it's an ugly.
JJ Redick, I heard what he had to say, and it sounded absolutely pathetic. JJ Redick sounded pathetic, saying he broke no laws. He broke no laws. I mean, first off, there's a trail of negative things that Jay Morant did. I mean, he has a whole trail of things. I understand he's young, but you want to know something? It's not the NBA's job to get him rehabilitated. It comes down to he himself. And I love the way these people blame the NBA. Well, they didn't do this. They didn't look out for what's best for the kid. He's got to look out for himself.
Well, the team can do it, and the team can look out for him by telling him you're not playing on this team, and the other NBA teams can do the same thing if you're going to exhibit this kind of behavior. Because if I went to work and that video came out, guess who wouldn't have a job? Me.
Exactly. And if let's say hypothetically, you even you suspend them a year, which I wouldn't be against. Okay, I'd be all for that. He's young. He can come back after a year. And let's say he can't get it together during that year, and he continues to exhibit that behavior. He's out of the league. The league will be fine without him. It's his job to adjust. Yeah. I don't want to hear I take full accountability for what I did. You want to know what full accountability is, guys? If he got suspended a year and he accepted it fully and tried to improve himself, that's taking accountability.
Change your behavior. That's accountability, right? Not just saying I was wrong and then keep doing it. That's not accountability.
Yeah, I agree.
And look, it needs to start a lot sooner than it does. You're right. It's not the NBA's job, and because this behavior is ingrained in guys long before they get to the league, and now it's only enhanced by the money. And the parents, you look at his parents, and I don't see where he's getting any help from his parents either. They're just
the security guard, the incident with the security guard.
Yeah.
The incident with that kid. There's the incident with the Indiana Pacers. There's a whole trail there. For me, I'm for suspending for a year at the very least.
Yeah.
If you feel he's sincere, half the year. I'm not saying he's not sincere. Maybe he believes, look, I really did screw up, but you got to do the right thing. I mean, maybe his heart really is in the right place right now, and he really means to be better. You got to get there somehow. And giving him like a 20-game suspension again isn't going to do it.
I agree. And he's got to show me something. Don't just say it. And on the J.J. Redick thing, he should just shut up because he's campaigning for a job and he's not going to say anything negative about the league or any of the players in it because he wants a job. He's trying to get the Raptors job.
No kidding, J.J. Yeah. I didn't know that, Keith.
Yeah.
There you go. So let's get a little Yankees in here. Hal Steinbrenner revealed that he has closed-door meetings with Aaron Judge and Derek Cole. He's skipping the whole process of going through his GM right now. So he's having closed-door meetings right now with these two guys. What does that say about Brian Cashman, Keith?
Listen, if I was Hal Steinbrenner, I'd be skipping him too. Because look at the teams. Look at Brian Cashman should have been gone a while ago. I mean, this team wins. You want to win regular season games and win, 100 games every year. That's great.
Wait. Tell me what's going on here. Closed door meetings? I didn't hear about that. What? Yeah.
Hal Stein, they're talking about the team, what improvements could be made. They're leaving everybody out of it. They're leaving out Boone. They're leaving out he's taking the one player from each side, I guess. Judge and Cole right now. I don't know if there's anybody else involved. That's
well, it's two highest paid players probably, so that's probably got something to do with it.
By the way, guys, when I say stay the course with the Aaron Hicks 3 hits last night. He's coming around. Just to let you guys know.
Yeah, he's up to about 130. That's a tremendous
3 hits.
So speaking of yesterday, Judge homers again. He's not looking at the side. He's kind of covering his face, his eyes. Cheating. I mean, what a big deal out of nothing, Keith.
Well, yeah, it's the Toronto broadcasters really caused this whole issue by talking about him looking at the first base coach rather, or where was he looking? They didn't know where he was looking. And this whole thing about base coaches being in the box, none of them are in the box. Go watch the videos of any game. Nobody's in the box hardly ever.
No, we found out after the game. The Toronto pitcher admitted he didn't know he was tipping his pitches. And the Yankees dugout noticed that, and they were letting Judge know.
As they should.
A fair thing to do.
As they should. And even if they're stealing signs, I don't care. Everybody steals signs. Don't do a better job of concealing your signs. Don't tip your pitches. Brian Schneider, shut up because you want to call somebody fat boy. You might want to. Listen, I'm not skinny by any means. I'm not calling people fat boy when I need to lose a few pounds myself, Brian. And I think he was yelling at Brad Wilkinson, the Yankees assistant hitting coach, is who he was yelling at that night. Aaron Boone got into it last night, telling the guys to shut up in the Toronto dugout. I think this is great. I think this is great for the games to come with the Yankees and Blue Jays. I love this type of animosity between teams. I think
Can you imagine Don Mattingly, who's assistant manager, bench coach, if he was the Blue Jay manager? I don't know where you get these hostilities because of the level of respect that Mattingly commands. Mattingly wouldn't come back at the Yankee dugout the same way. Also, the level of respect would be such that it would be toned down a bit.
I agree. I mean, they're different personalities, right? Donnie's not that kind of guy who's going to scream, "Hey, shut up, fat boy," across the diamond, So I still think Donnie might end up the manager of this team before the season's out. I said before the season, Schneider be the first guy fired and Donnie be running that team. We'll see. They're not playing great baseball, so we'll see.
Yeah. Well, Volpe got a solo shot home run. I guess he made an error at shortstop. Of course, they're all saying he shouldn't play shortstop now. I mean, the kid's under a microscope. I don't know. Where are you going to put him, Keith? I mean, that's his position.
Well, I mean, look, he could play second base. He might be able to play third base, but whatever. He's the shortstop now. We can't pick apart every single play. I mean, yes, every shortstop's going to make errors. Derek Jeter made a lot of errors, and one goal it was. I didn't deserve, but listen, he's coming along fine. The batting average has got to get better. He's hitting with some power. I hope he doesn't fall in love with that. That's all. There's nothing. He's not the reason this team is, 6.5 games out of first. But the way the Rays have played and the Yankees played in April and part of May, they're not in bad position at 6 games over 500 and 6.5 out of first.
No, I want to pick up on something I was talking with Keith about at the end of the show, and we didn't have time to expand. Anthony Volpe, 21 years old. And I mentioned to Keith, I would actually sign Volpe to a team-friendly, and listen straight, don't let 15-year contract to take him to age 36. If you could sign him 11 to 12 million a year, because the price goes up as the years go along, a massive guaranteed contract, but you have to believe he's the real thing, and you tie him up for his career basically at a good team price. Because if you don't, and you wait for him to become a free agent, you're going to spend so much more money. Had they done that with Judge very early on and believed, they would have saved so much money, on signing Aaron Judge.
I agree with that concept. The problem is when they give these guys those long-term contracts at this age, at that low a price, they give them opt-outs and they end up paying them anyway.
No opt-out.
To me, you either sign that for that security for the rest of your life, basically, or you sign short-term and then you can be a free agent. You don't get both things. You can't have the security and be able to opt out when your contract's obsolete. That's where Major League Baseball has been going wrong for years. And all these guys that signed, Tatis signed for a long time, Wander Franco in Tampa Bay, they've all got opt-outs after 2 or 3 years where they can be free agents anyway. So what's the point of signing them long-term? There is none.
Tatis got big money. He signed at age 23 a 14-year deal that paid him something like $24 million a year. So he really got good money. But the Padres were thinking Tatis could be a superstar and get between 35 and 40, and we could lose him. So they kind of gave him a very good deal, and he went for the security.
But if he does develop into the player people think he will, then that $24 million will be obsolete, and he'll opt out at some point, and they're going to pay him anyway.
I didn't know he had an opt-out, Tatis, in the 14-year deal.
Absolutely. Almost all these guys do when they sign those contracts, and they should not. That's one thing that needs to stop.
Well, we'll see what happens. Let's talk a little bit Patriots, Keith. I took a listen to a podcast today. I think it was Pat's Only or Pat's Fans Only or something like that. They were talking about the 2 players that they picked up in the draft. They were talking about, let me get to it, Keon White and this guy, Matu, if I'm saying it right. Matui?
The kid from Sacramento State, yeah.
Yeah, they were saying that Belichick thinks Kevin White could be the next best disruptor that he's seen in a long time. And this kid from a small school, when he hits people, he kind of buckles them. So he's a very hard hitter. So they said, let's see, Matui is like Kyle Dugar. They're comparing him to him, and they're comparing the other kid, Kevin White, to a Willie McGinnis. So those are pretty big shoes.
Well, they are. I mean, listen, Keon White is a guy that they feel they can play up and down the line pretty much anywhere. They wanted to get more athletic on defense, and these were 2 of the keys to it. I like both the picks. As you said, White can be a disruptor, and they can move him around, which Belichick likes, versatile guys on that front 7. And versatile guys in general. I mean, Matu, I'm going to say his name wrong right now without looking at it too.
Matu. I think it's Mapu.
I think it's Mapu. He's a guy that he played linebacker in college, but he could very well play a lot of safety or maybe all safety at some point with the Patriots. So because they need to replace Devin McCourty, don't forget. And I think they've got that in the back of their mind too. And he's gone this small school route before. You mentioned Kyle Dugar. He played Division III football, and they pretty much hit a home run with him. He's the same kind of player, as you mentioned. He's got versatility. He's a big hitter, and he just finds a way to get involved. It seems like in every play. And Belichick like guys like this. I like both these kids. I like a lot of the Patriots picks, and these are 2 that I like a lot.
Yeah, I mean, when you get, you kind of, I made a little fun of the Patriots picks this year, but when you start looking into who they actually picked, it's a little bit more different. I mean, I think if I'm not wrong, that the Leon White kid, he was a former tight end, and so that shows he has good hands too. So
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to really drop back into coverage, come strong like McGinnis did. I mean, it looks like that
Might even see him playing some offense down at the goal line like Mike Vrabel used to do.
Right. Who knows? So I mean, good job, and of course, it's on the defensive side. That's Belichick's thing. He's into the defense more.
They needed to get quicker and more athletic on defense, and they've known that for a couple of years, and I think they did it. There's another kid they picked too. His name's escaping me, who's a linebacker but also very athletic type as well. So I thought they did very well with their draft, and they got a couple of wide receivers later on that have big upside, low risk because you only drafted them, 5th and 6th round. So. I like what they did.
Yeah, I think it's a good year. They're going to have a good year. Well, I don't know if the record's going to reflect that. Maybe they're a couple years away, but I think they're going to have a good year this year. They also put DeMarcus Covington representing the Pats at the NFL Accelerate program. All the teams are doing this in the NFL. It gets these guys ready on a fast track to be a head coach, and most of it's because adversity. The Rooney Rule didn't work, so they're trying this to see if this works. That maybe they can have more diversity and people coming to the forefront. Keith, I think you're going to hire the best coach, black or white, whatever it is. You're not going to hire anybody because they're an accelerator program unless he's really good. I don't know.
No, that's why the Rooney Rule didn't work either, because you're going to hire the coach you want. All you have to do is give a cursory interview to minorities and you're all good. So that was never going to be, a fix. But you're seeing more minorities getting hired now, both for head coaches, coordinator positions, and now maybe in the front office, which was much less diverse than the field has been, even up until the last year or so, is starting to get a lot more diverse as well. I think these things, if you try to force them with things like the Rooney Rule, I think it sets them back more than it helps them. And I think if you just let it run its course, then good coaches that are minorities will get jobs eventually, right?
Yeah.
So
I agree with that. It's always, to me, it's you're not going to hire in private sector anyway. I know this public and people watch it. And they're trying to go along with certain standards. Private sector, if you're the best qualified guy, you're probably going to get hired. The only difference, and this happens in the NFL too, is if you're good friends with somebody, and that has happened, and that's turned out terrible.
It's an old boy network. It's it always has been, but it's starting to change a little bit. You're starting to see a lot more younger guys get hired. But sometimes the examples of why not enough minority coaches get hired. Like Eric Bieniemy's been the poster child for this for like 6 years now, but there's got to be a reason Eric Bieniemy isn't getting hired, or he would have been hired, because other black coaches have been hired and he hasn't.
Well, I asked Jeff Cote, Keith, who's familiar with Eric Bieniemy's background, knowing what you know. If you were known, I asked Jim, would you hire Eric Bieniemy? And he said no. He actually said no on Eric Bieniemy, but yet Eric Bieniemy is going to the Commanders as the offensive coordinator. And if he develops Sam Howell and they have a really good offense, how do you not give him a head coaching job? But let me ask you this.
He'll have a better shot. Let me answer that before you go on. He'll have a better shot if he does do what you just said than playing under Andy Reid, because Andy Reid's always going to get all the credit for that offense, always. So Eric Bieniemy had to strike against them there all the time. Was it you or was it Andy? Right? So that's always tough.
Let me play devil's advocate for 1 second, because I do agree with what you said, Keith, and what Max said as well. The Giants, they've never had a black head coach. The Cowboys have never had a black head coach. So after a while, you look at the whole list of Giant hirings. I understand this year, Brian Flores wanted a job badly. He didn't get it. That's why Brian Flores is coming out with the lawsuit and all the other stuff. To me, it's sour grapes not getting the Giant job. That's my opinion on that. But the Giants hired a GM in Joe Shine, who had a close relationship in Buffalo with Brian DeBall. That's the reason why. But there were hirings before that. And even at Dallas, after a while, you see a long list of hirings with an individual franchise, and it does become annoying. You see the point of view after a while with a limited amount of franchises.
Individual franchises, you could have, systematic issues, right? And the whole league doesn't. The league as a whole, I don't think does. I think they've gotten much more diversified, as I said. Now, individual franchises could have issues now, but the Giants also had a black GM, if I'm not mistaken, until they hired Shite. So, again, I don't think it's a racial issue, a racial bias issue. I just think, as Max said, they hire the people that they like and they want to hire.
Well, before you get black head coaches, I mean, the Patriots, I don't think had one in their history. The Jets haven't had one. There ain't too many teams.
Belichick's been there forever. That hasn't been a chance for any coach.
Yeah, him, and before that, a couple others too. But the point of the matter is, before you can get them black head coaches, they've got to have more black assistants and they got to have more black coordinators. Yeah. It's got to work its way through to break that cycle. You can't. I mean, you look at the linebacker that's. The defensive coach for the Patriots, his name is slipping my mind right now.
Jared Mayo.
Yeah.
He's been interviewed a couple times for head coach, but they want to keep him, so they're offering him more money. Maybe he'll be the heir apparent to Bill Belichick. So there's promises made too that we don't know about in the coaching staffs that maybe they're sticking around till the head coach leaves. I mean, there's a lot to it, Jack.
Well, we heard about it even with the Carolina Panthers. They moved on from Steve Wilkes. Steve Wilkes was the interim coach. He wasn't a coach at the start of the year. He took over for, the Baylor head coach, Matt Rule.
Matt Rule,
who got fired, okay? And they went 6-6, and they're saying how wonderful he did. Yeah, they got stable after being so bad, but they didn't make the playoffs and was there for them. Had they done a little better, they would have made the playoffs, and the Buccaneers beat them in a key game, and the 8-9 Tampa Bay Buccaneers wound up winning the division. Had Steve Wilkes won the division, then you have a little more of an argument that he took over, and he didn't do it. So in the offseason, he got interviewed. They wanted to go with Frank Reich, but they point out, well, Frank Reich just got let go by Indianapolis. But Steve Wilkes had his chance to grab the job. Had they, won the division, had they, but they didn't get it done at the end. So I don't want to hear that he's entitled.
Listen, as far as winning the division, they were pretty much buried when he got there. So it was going to be very hard to win that division, even though
they went 6-6. The Panthers went 6-6 with Steve Wilkes, and the Panthers aren't a bad team. They have a decent defense. They just played worse than they should have before he took over. But it's not like he did anything to merit the Panther job. He was the interim coach.
Well, they knew they were going to be drafting a quarterback, and they wanted a quarterback coach, and that's why they go to Frank Reich. I mean, if they'd hired Sean Payton, then nobody would have blinked an eye that Wilkes got let go for Payton. They blink an eye because it's Frank Reich.
Yeah. Good morning, Philly sports guy. Pags is on with us from his living room. How you doing, Pags?
Morning. How is everybody?
I thought his living room was at place down the street there, Pags.
Yeah, well, this is my other living room.
Oh, okay.
Yes, too. He's making a lot of money now. So, Pags, we'll start you off with some Philly basketball. Doc Rivers gets let go, as you called it, that if he didn't win, he would get let go. So they're saying that he won't have a job. He won't be without a job for too long. What do you think? Doc Rivers' fault? Players' fault? I don't
know. Both.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, how is it that you go down? He made some really poor decisions, I felt. Like, first off, your hot hand in the first quarter was PJ Tucker. So what do? In the second quarter, you give him one shot, then pull him out of the game, and he doesn't get another shot really for the rest of the game. Amazing. That was great work on his part. It's like he was the only one even hitting shots in the first quarter, but let's pull him out and let's stop giving him the ball. And then, like at one point you had to have seen the same thing I did, where it was like Harden needed to come out of the game for longer than 2 seconds. That he was just not doing well. He kept throwing the ball away. He like had 3 turnovers in a row. And then, okay, well, obviously, Doc, you don't have the guts enough to pull him out and put him on the bench for a little while. While they're on a 25-3 run. Let's just throw the game away so that there's no chance of us coming back whatsoever. And that's what happened.
I think what happened is, and we discussed this with Keith too, the reseeding situation. If they were reseeded the NBA, the next round the way they should have this past round, the Sixers would have been playing the Knicks. There's a good chance the Sixers would have won that series. We don't know for sure. That means the Heat, who are up 1-0 on the Celtics now, would have been playing the Celtics. Now, if the Heat beat the Celtics in this series, it means they probably would have beaten them a couple of weeks before, probably. That means it's conceivable the Sixers would have been playing the Heat to see who went to the finals. So by not reseeding, it's possible it cost the Sixers a shot at going to the NBA Finals.
I think that the Heat don't beat the Celtics. I think that the Heat won game 1 because the Celtics had a tough series, and so it's ultimately, I think that they don't make it past the Celtics. The Heat doesn't have enough of a bench. It's Jimmy Butler versus the whole team, and I don't know that that's going to carry. I know somebody did step up for the Heat. I didn't really watch that game, but somebody did step up for them, to help out Jimmy Butler. But ultimately, it's Jimmy Butler versus the Celtics, and that's just not. They're not going to be able to do that.
They got a huge coaching edge. Eric Spoelstra is the best coach in the NBA. Nobody knows anything about it. Seems.
And they've said that about Jimmy Butler and the Heat so far all through the playoffs. So we'll see.
I know.
It'll be interesting. I think the Celtics got the better team. We'll see. The better talent, maybe.
I wouldn't sell out a bio spot for the Heat, though.
Yeah, I sure wouldn't count on
Kyle Lowry looked good in the last game.
Pags, I look at Doc Rivers, and he's like a lot of coaches to me. He can get you to the dance, but you're not going to win the dance. Thibodeau's had that rap. Buck Showalter has had that rap. There's a lot of coaches that are good coaches during the regular season, but when they get to the playoffs, I maybe it's the intensity. I don't know. Maybe they depend more.
So what's he 3-72 in Game 7s? I think that's the record or something like that. I mean, he's had more Game 7s than any other coach, and he's lost more than every other coach has ever been in Game 7s.
I think Pags is a bit grumpy, Mac, and I think the reason he's really grumpy, I know you didn't want to touch on it, Mac, because of Ben Simmons trolling the Sixers.
Hold on. Ben Simmons said something?
You didn't hear about it? Ben Simmons had a laugh at the Sixers' expense.
He woke up from his coma and he had a couple of words to say. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even know. Yeah, because Ben Simmons, moves my needle that much.
Pags, about your Rivers in Game 7 comment, it's even worse when you think about it. I think the 3 games that he won in Game 7, he was a coach of the Celtics, and he coached at home where they never lose Game 7. So he had that going for him. So it's even worse than you think.
But actually, one was against the Sixers in Game 7 in 2008, wasn't it? Isn't that when they beat the Sixers with Iguodala?
Yeah.
Well, then he had a great team. So suppose, just for fun's sake here, he's the coach of the Nuggets this year. The Nuggets do they go to finals?
No.
I don't know.
I don't know. The Nuggets. Did they wind up winning last night?
Yeah, they're 2-0. They're 2-0 against the Lakers.
All right, so they were able to pull it out. I think that they lose a couple in L.A. I think that series goes 7 games too. I think that L.A. actually does hold serve and win their 2 games at home, and then they go back and forth. I think that this is going to be a tougher series than people think. But I don't think Denver.
You think the NBA's happy if they get 2 teams from the play-in tournament in the finals?
Yes, I
Yeah.
think that acknowledges the fact that they need to play in tournament.
Yeah, it does justify it, I guess.
And I think the
No,
So-
the
Lakers.
Denver's due to go to the finals. They've never been there. Jokic is a superstar, but you get the feeling the NBA, they want LeBron there.
Yeah.
Now,
Well, I think they want.
Lakers-
Don't they want to see LA Boston? Like, isn't that like
Yeah.
the
Okay.
old rivalry in the championships? Like that's kind of what it is that they would want. I mean, I can imagine that's their dream, but who knows if that really occurs or not.
Miami and Denver, for hardcore fans, it's a nice series, but who cares? Jimmy Butler, Jokic to the average fan.
Oh, they'd have bad ratings, I think, if that was a final. Yeah.
Who's
Might be
your
a
next,
series, though.
who's your next coach for the 76ers, Pags? Who do you predict is going to take over as next head coach?
I don't have a prediction.
No?
I don't know enough about the coaches that are out there. Like, I mean, there's a piece of me that says, well, the first person that comes to mind is the Milwaukee coach, and I can't even say his last name. And then the next person that comes to mind is Jay Wright, who I don't think has a shot at being the coach.
Yeah.
And then you heard about JJ Redick, which I thought was just goofy because, that's the one thing you want. You want somebody who's never coached an NBA game before in his life to go out and coach a game. So it's I have no clue.
Well, Mike D'Antonio. D'Antonio coming up, too.
Yeah, that's just a ruse. There ain't no way that they're going to bring him. If they were to hire D'Antonio, you would lose every Sixers fan.
Yeah.
No, Pags. The reason they would do that is because of James Harden. He can bring out the best in James Harden. That would mean Harden's fully committed. What's very interesting is Joel Embiid seemed to be unhappy with Doc Rivers getting fired. No one talked to him about it. And what makes no sense to me as far as James Harden goes, Houston reportedly is ready to offer him a max deal. Why? He left Houston unhappy. Houston has no shot at winning the NBA title. Harden, I don't want to say he's on his last legs, but he's going to be declining. You pay him a lot of money. He's not going to perform on a consistent basis going forward. I just don't get the Harden to Houston talk. It makes no sense at all. But D'Antonio to the Sixers makes sense because him and James Harden reportedly have a very tight relationship.
Yeah,
Not
great. And just go right back to losing again. So
Well, he'll get you to the playoffs and lose.
There you go.
He's
right.
another guy who's good at that.
Yeah. So Harden, do you care if he stays or not? Pags, really? I mean, push on from him, pick up another free agent. What do you think they should do?
So I think that this talk about Harden moving on and opting out is part of the ruse of, hey, I'm trying to get 4 years, $50 million a year. And if he can get 4 year, $200 million somewhere, go get it.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to get that type of contract. And ultimately, I think that he'll wind up being with the Sixers for 1 more year. So that being said, it's like, all right, I keep him for the 1 year and, you try to run it back with a different coach. And you figure it out from there. If he decides that he wants to go, he wants to opt out and take that other deal that somebody's going to give him. If Houston's going to give him the $200 million, Godspeed. Get going, because I ain't giving you $200 million. You didn't show me you're worth that money. Especially when anytime it matters, you seem to come up very small.
He reminds me a lot of Carmelo Anthony, with his shooting anyway. I mean, I think he's better getting the ball out of his hands to other people. I can see James Harden next couple of years maybe becoming a bench player. What are your thoughts about that, Pat?
That's a lot of money for a bench player.
Sure is.
I can't say that that'll happen, but
a little
I'm
old
not
in
the
the
one
tooth.
that's
A little old in the tooth. And that's the problem with the Lakers too, Pags. They're a little old in the tooth too. They get up in that high altitude, and the Denver Nuggets start running. They're puffing and puffing, trying to catch him. So I think that's the problem. that Lakers should be okay in LA. We'll see. If Denver beats them the first game in LA, I think it's over. It's
Game
over.
over.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that, but I don't know. I think that LA back home, with a little bit of extra nudging from the referees. Like I said, I bet you see that game called a lot tighter. And that those calls will always seem to shade towards LA. I think that LA wins the next two games because they don't want it to be 4 games. They don't want to sweep. So I feel that I feel like it's going to go 6 or 7 games. And I feel that LA is going to get all of the opportunities to make sure that happens.
All right. I'll touch on baseball a little bit early in the season. Philly, they lose their 4th straight game. Pitching needs to get better. They're struggling with runners in scoring position, Pags. I don't know. I can't get these games back when it comes to the end of the season, Pags.
It was just like last year. I just don't know what's going to be the catalyst to spark them this year. Last year it was, okay, we just fired Girardi and we're going to go, we're going to rally around Rob Thompson. This year, what is it going to be? Because it can't be Harper coming back because you brought him back way too early. So I'm not exactly sure what the thought process will be and how they will, spark to be able to get things moving in the right direction again. But it'll happen. It'll happen, I'm sure.
Yeah, Florida's kind of second place, playing pretty good ball right now. I'm surprised. I don't know. I don't follow them, but they're playing.
It's another thing that Florida does. They play good in the first half of the season. They start to trail off and then fall back by the second half of the season.
Pitching's really good. They got a minus 52 run differential, by the way. They're 2 games over 500. That's like impossible, it seems.
Interesting. Some Eagles news. They say you're predicted to sign former Pittsburgh Steeler Jacksonville linebacker Miles Jack, maybe to a short-term contract. Have you heard anything about that, Pags?
No, but that sounds right up their alley on a 1-year deal. Show me deal. So that you show me and then go sign somewhere else afterwards.
Yeah, I guess he's 37 years old from what I read. He's one of the better linebackers in the league since he's been with Pittsburgh especially, and even playing over there at Jacksonville. 2 aggressive defensives. He'd fit in there at least for that 1 year. So we'll see what happens with that. Jason Kelsey. Eagles lost one of the best guards in the NFL, and Isaac Samalo. Yeah, Steelers getting a deal. So Kelsey, speaking up great about his guard that plays next to him. Pack. Do you agree with him?
No, but that doesn't mean that. I think he's somebody that you play next to. You always talk about, hey, he's one of the best. But truth of the matter, he was the weak link in the chain. Sam Allo. He played well. This past year and such, but he was always the weak link in the chain. He was the one that would go off sides. He was the one that would let some people through. He would be the one that would get the holding calls. So I didn't mind watching him go. But they obviously, when you play next to somebody for 7-8 years, you talk good about him. You don't want to talk bad about him.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that's what he's doing.
The Giants have come out saying they're going to run the San Francisco 49ers style offense. Of course, their offensive coordinator was the coach, the quarterback coach over with the 49ers. So they're going to try and get the ball out of Daniel Jones' hand faster, spread the ball around, depend on the tight end a little bit more. And, of course, the Cowboys built up their secondary. This is all to beat the Eagles, Pags. Everybody's going to, they're going to try and stop the Eagles. What do you think about the Giants putting on a 49ers style offense this year?
That's what I think. You got to have the pieces to be able to do that, and they don't have the pieces like that. Saquon Barkley isn't that style of running back. You know what I mean? And the receivers aren't that style of receiver. So how do you do that How do you
Well-
make how do you make a Pop-Tart out of pancakes? You don't.
Well, Pack, Saquon catches the ball out of the backfield very well. What San Francisco did last year was spread the ball around to different receivers. They didn't really have a big receiver last year except for tight end. And the Giants are thinking that maybe Waller will have one of those years.
Oh, yeah, because he was so great the last 3 years.
Yeah, last two, he was really good. Yeah, he was really good. We'll see what happens. It's interesting to me that they're trying that approach this year instead of just trying to run the ball down the Eagles' throat and play action. It didn't work last year. They got to try something else. So I'm all for it. Go for it, man. So anyway.
Hey, listen, I do think that the Giants take a little bit of a step forward. I at first I thought that they would take a step backwards. Now, as I look at it, I think that they are probably the second best team in the division.
It'll be very interesting. I mean, it's going to be a great year again over there in the NFC East anyway. Jack, hit us with some boxing news. I know you got a lot of it over there. Of course, Lomachenko and Haney is probably the biggest thing that's not going to happen. I don't think they're going to sanction it.
Lomachenko and Haney are fighting tomorrow night. What do you mean?
Well, there you go. So they did sanction.
Yeah, not sanction it. This is going to be a classic case of a great fighter, Lomachenko. I don't want to say he's at the end of his career, but there's been a little bit slippage. He's a little older, and it's like Haney's coming out party, more or less. Lomachenko's not a shot fighter. There's a school of thought that maybe he'll show up in peak form. Maybe he really hasn't lost anything. And that if he's the Lomachenko of old, certainly he's capable of winning the fight because he's a great fighter, two-time Olympic gold medalist, great throw, fights in the most unorthodox style, herky-jerky. And, of course, there's a talk, well, who's Haney beaten? What's he proven? I mean, that's the typical talk we hear all the time. But with Haney's major size advantage, even though they both have to make the lightweight limit, once he rehydrates, he's a much bigger guy, which was evident when you see the two of them standing side by side. I think it's kind of like a passing of the guard type fight. And I know who I do glove fist with, Frank Laterza, when I commented on social media that Haney, I think, is going to be a generational talent. Laterzo says he must be blind. When I say a generational talent, I'm talking about along the lines of a Pernell Whitaker. He was a generational talent, great fighter. And I think Haney kind of is going to enter that territory, maybe not quite be on Whitaker's level yet. He's going to have to prove himself more before he gets there. But a lot of times, let's face it, we base things on potential, like that kid that's going to be drafted by the Spurs from France. If we call him a generational talent, he hasn't proven it yet, but we're basing it on his potential, what we think not only he will do, but what he could do as well. And I'm kind of basing Haney as being one of the big stars in boxing, down the line. And it's really going to start with this Lomachenko fight. I think he's going to win by a very wide margin, 9 rounds to 3, 10 rounds to 2. It's going to be a comprehensive victory, I think, over Lomachenko in this fight. But there's always that little bit of hesitancy. As I said, if the Lomachenko of a few years ago shows up, not the Lomachenko that had an off night with Jermaine Ortiz in his last fight and barely won, and not the Lomachenko who's been in the war-torn Ukraine having to live there, but the Lomachenko of a few years back, it could be pretty interesting. Well,
so you're picking you sound pretty confident that
Haney by a wide decision.
Okay. The one I was saying that wouldn't be sanctioned, Jack, was the one below that. Alvarez and Bivol at 168. They're saying they still have the Russian fighter and the Ukraine war. Canelo wants to go to 175, not 168. Bivol don't care. I mean, what are your thoughts? Does this
Well,
thing ever?
first of all, Canelo is lying by saying he wants to fight at 175. I'm not saying he doesn't mean it when he says it, but when push comes to shove, the people around him aren't going to want him to move up and fight Bivol again at 175, where he lost to him. They're going to want every advantage. You know, that makes about as much sense as a pitcher saying he doesn't want any rosin on his hand. He just wants the ball. He doesn't want any sticky stuff on his hands. But if he can get sticky stuff on his hands and get away with it legally, who's going to turn it down? Of course he's going to give in and take the sticky stuff. And that's with Canelo. And with Bivol saying he's wants to go down to 168, he's going to have to, in a way, go down in weight, because Canelo, who lost to Bivol before, is now going to want every advantage he could get. The people around them, they're not even anxious to make that fight. But if Canelo insists, they'll make the fight only under the condition that Bivol is physically compromised to give Canelo a better chance. I mean, that's what boxing's about. As far as the sanctioning bodies, they're not going to sanction the fight. When it comes to money, Canelo commands big money, big business. Of course they're going to give in. So don't listen to this sanctioning body nonsense. They're just going to enforce rules with lesser fighters. But when it comes to Canelo, they'll give in. They'll find some excuse to give in to Canelo.
Who in your opinion, Jack? I know you don't watch the young boxers too much, but if you were to pick the new heavyweight that's going to raise a little cane, who would that be?
Well, what are you talking about? I don't watch the upcoming. I watch them all the time. I have a good read on them. Matt, what are you talking about? That's like telling Paz and Keith, well, you don't pay attention at all to the rookies in the NFL or NBA. Of course they pay it. They're aware what's going on. The guys who got drafted.
I don't know, Jack. I brought up a heavyweight before, and you went no.
I don't want to nonsense because it's hard to put a read. I could say Jared Anderson, who's been a prospect forever, who fights for top rank. He's supposedly the next big thing. But if he's that good, why haven't they stepped him up the last couple of years? At least the last year. That's why I'm apprehensive. Why haven't they stepped them, up in that sense?
Yeah. So that's all you got is Jared Anderson.
Yeah, Jared Anderson. There's no one out there who has shown themselves to be such an elite prospect to get excited about. Just because the guy's had 4 or 5 fights, I'm not going to get excited. He's won a few of his early fights and hasn't really shown anything.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying. I know I've mentioned a couple, and you went.
Jared Anderson's the name. You mentioned that 18-year-old kid from England,
right,
a while ago, and then after you mentioned him, Atui or something, the name. He then had a fight against a fighter from Ukraine who had a losing record, and he went to 6-round distance and didn't look anything exceptional in the fight. It doesn't mean he won't be a talent later. But you can't believe all the hype, You see a couple of stories written on the guy, word gets out on social media, and people get excited when there is nothing to get excited about, at least for the time being.
Yeah, he's young. He's really young. I was reading, I look at a lot of boxing sites. They were talking a little bit about, who was the greatest welterweight. The first guy that came up, the undefeated 40-0 boxer himself. And they were talking about
Ray Robinson when he was 40. No one has seen clips of Sugar Ray Robinson as a welterweight. I mean, you hear guys like my partner Frank Laterzo, how dare you compare anyone to Sugar Ray Robinson at welterweight? We haven't seen, it doesn't exist hardly any film footage of all when he was a welterweight. I mean, I'm not saying he wasn't the greatest pound for pound ever. His record was absolutely sensational when he was in his prime, but there's not the video evidence there is today.
Right. Well, I mean, there's been a lot of videos that we don't got and stuff that we say are great fighters, Jack. I mean, John L. Sullivan. I mean, there's not too many tapes of him fighting.
Can you imagine someone said, and this might have some validity, that Oscar Robertson is the greatest basketball player of all time? If they said it to you, it would have credibility, actually. But how do you come? Why do we say fighters in the 20s, 30s, and 40s are better than the modern athlete necessarily? The Big O he was dominant mostly in the 1960s, okay? I mean, would he have adjusted to today's game? Yeah, of course he would have adjusted. But what Oscar Robertson showed us then, could you tell me he's the greatest player of all time? If I said he was better than Jordan, you could make that case perhaps. But it was a little different time. I think we could only compare guys for their eras.
Okay, one last question. Do they put too much emphasis on an undefeated record rather than who they box today, Jack?
I think we do business-wise. It sounds good, unbeaten. But Lomachenko has lost a couple of fights, and he's in a big fight. You know, tomorrow Manny Pacquiao's lost a number of fights. I think too much emphasis is put on that, especially protecting a guy on the way up, his unbeaten record. So he's not in the type of fights he maybe should be to help him improve. But once you get to a certain stature, then it becomes important to a guy to keep his unbeaten record. And listen, legacy-wise, if Rocky Marciano had lost the fight, would we even be discussing him as conceivably being one of the greatest heavyweights of all time? Probably not, because he was 49-0, unbeaten. That's his calling card. Floyd Mayweather, because he was unbeaten, that's his calling card. You know, but put one loss on their record. Are we going to say they were as great as they were? You know, I don't know.
All right. All I know is Sugar Ray Leonard, Thomas Hearns wasn't undefeated, and I'd take them over some of these welterweights that have no losses today. So anyway, folks, Friday day is done. Enjoy your Friday night. We'll be back tomorrow on the Saturday debate show. Only going an hour tomorrow, Pags, if you're going to be in, so get in early.
Let me just say one thing to end the show with the Patriots. Had they finished the Giants off the Super Bowl and been 19-0, they would have been considered the greatest NFL team of all time. But because of that one loss, do we even put them in the top 10? And if we do, it's all the way at the bottom of the top 10. So undefeated, it means a lot in certain circumstances in sports.
Well, we get to play the Patriots and beat them again this year. So, folks, again, Saturday debate show tomorrow.
Nice.
That would be fun. Super Bowl. Sunday, This Week in Sports, where the two below us will be with us with Jim Jeffcoat and Robert Butler. So tune in this weekend, folks. Have a great Friday night, and we'll see you tomorrow on the debate show.